Her bare feet scuffed the dust as she stopped in front of him, eyes too old for her years. "Can you be my father, just for a day?" The cowboy froze, calloused hands tightening on the reins. Why would an Apache child ask him that, out of all men? And what debt, what danger, what truth was hiding behind her trembling voice? The saloon's doors still swung behind him when he saw her, small, ragged, standing by the horse rail like she'd been waiting all day. The townsfolk passed without looking. Maybe they'd seen her before, maybe they didn't want to. Her braids were loose, dust tangled in them. A strip of leather bound one wrist, like it had once been tied tighter. She held her chin high anyway. He frowned, shifting the weight of his saddlebag. "You lost?" She shook her head slowly. "No. I'm asking." He squatted to her height, eyes narrowing. "Asking what?" Her lips trembled, but the words came steady. "Can you be my father for a day?" The question hit harder than any bullet he'd dodged. He blinked, glancing around. Nobody paid attention. Nobody cared. "Why me?" he asked, voice rough. "Because you stopped," she whispered. "No one else does." His throat tightened. He saw the bruises on her arms, the way her stomach growled before she stilled it. This wasn't a child spinning tales for pity. This was a child alone. "You got kin?" he asked. She shook her head once. "Gone," he exhaled, standing slow, thumb brushing his hat brim. A man like him didn't need ties, didn't want them. But her eyes wouldn't let him walk away. "What does a father do?" he asked, testing her. Her gaze didn't flinch. "He stands between me and them." She nodded toward the saloon, where rough laughter rolled out into the street. "And he says I'm not nothing." The cowboy's jaw clenched. He looked at the doors, then at her. "That's a lot for one day," he muttered. Her hand tugged his sleeve. "One day is more than I've had." The saloon roared with a new burst of laughter, glass breaking. Men spilled into the street, already drunk, already looking for trouble. One pointed at the girl, grinning mean. "Hey, isn't that the little rat we ran off last week?" Her fingers tightened on the cowboy's sleeve. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She only whispered once more, "Please." He slid his saddlebag higher on his shoulder, jaw set. His voice came low, steady, the kind of voice that could hold a gun without holding it yet. "You heard her," he said, eyes never leaving the men. "She's got a father, and he's standing right here." The street went still. Dust hung in the air. The girl pressed herself closer to his side, heart pounding. And the cowboy knew. Whatever this day would cost him, it had already begun. The three men spilling out of the saloon stank of whiskey and smoke. Spurs clinked as they swaggered into the street, eyes narrowing on the little girl clinging to the cowboy's sleeve. The tallest one grinned, showing a broken tooth. "Well, look here. Thought we scared that brat off for good, and now she's got herself a daddy." His laugh rattled the windows. The girl's nails dug into the cowboy's coat. She didn't speak, didn't blink, just pressed closer, like her whole life balanced on whether he moved or not. The cowboy adjusted his hat, his voice low and calm. "That's right. She's mine now." The second man, shorter, sneered. "Yours? You don't even know her name." The cowboy looked down at the girl. "What's your name, darling?" Her voice shook but didn't break. "Nita." He nodded once, slow, then looked back at the men. "You heard her. Nita Rourke. My blood or not makes no difference." The third outlaw spat in the dust. "Mighty convenient. Pick up a stray and call yourself father. What's next? You want us to salute?" The cowboy's jaw flexed. "What I want," he said, his tone cutting now, "is for you to remember the line between men and vermin. You cross it, you answer to me." The tallest chuckled, but the edge of it faltered. He leaned forward, squinting. "You serious? For her? She's Apache stock. Don't you know what folks'll say?" The cowboy's hand drifted near his belt, not yet on his revolver. His eyes stayed flat. "Folks can say what they want. Today she's under my name. That means she eats, she walks free, and nobody lays a finger on her." Nita swallowed, whispering without looking up. "That's what fathers say." The outlaws caught it. The shortest one laughed, sharp and mean. "Hear that? She really believes him. Thinks she's got herself a hero." The cowboy's voice dropped low, almost gentle, but it carried like thunder. "Not hero, father. Don't mix the two. The tension coiled tighter. Townsfolk peered through half-shut doors, waiting for the crack of guns. The saloon piano had gone silent. The tall outlaw shifted his weight, smirk fading. His hand brushed his holster. Maybe we test this father's word, see if you bleed for her. The cowboy didn't flinch. He stepped half a pace forward, keeping Nita shielded. His coat lifted just enough to show the steel at his hip. His eyes were calm, not bluffing. Try me. The moment stretched, dust swirling between them. Then a voice rang from the boardwalk. Sheriff Mallory, hand on his badge, rifle cradled but not raised. That's enough. This town's had its fill of blood this month. You boys want trouble, you take it outside my lines. The men hesitated, muttered curses. The tall one spat near Nita's feet. Ain't the end of this, father. He dragged the word like a knife. The cowboy didn't answer. He just turned his shoulder, guiding Nita away, his hand steady at her back. When they reached the shade of the mercantile porch, she looked up at him, eyes wide, lips trembling. You really said I was yours? He knelt, brushing dust from her cheek. I did. Even if it's only for today, she asked. He held her gaze, his own softer now. Today's all we got promised. But while it lasts, yes, Nita, I'm your father. Her eyes brimmed, but she bit them back. She nodded once, small and fierce. Then I'm not afraid. The cowboy stood, scanning the street. He knew the men would be back, and words wouldn't be enough next time. But for now, with the sun hot above and the child pressed close at his side, he let himself believe the vow he'd spoken wasn't just for a day. By evening, the whole town had heard. Word traveled faster than dust. The drifter had taken in an Apache child, called her his daughter right in the street. At the smithy, hammers rang sharper, mutters thick between strikes. At the saloon, the piano picked up again, but every note carried the weight of whisper. Shopkeepers leaned in their door frames, eyes narrow, hands idle. The cowboy led Nita down the boardwalk, her small hand gripping his fingers so tight he could feel the tremor in her bones. She kept her chin high, though, refusing to let anyone see the fear beneath her braids. From the porch of the general store, Mrs. Hale hissed to a neighbor, "Brings savage blood into town and calls it his own. What's next? He'll give her his name on paper." Nita heard. She flinched but didn't slow. The cowboy's jaw tightened. He tipped his hat low and kept walking. At the sheriff's office, Mallory leaned against the post, rifle slung but not casual. "I've stirred the hornet's nest," he said. "Was already stirred," the cowboy answered. Mallory's gaze slid to the girl. "You sure about this? These folks got long memories and short mercy." Nita stepped forward before the cowboy could speak. "He's sure." Her voice wavered but didn't break. The sheriff studied her, then spat into the dust. "Then you better be too, little one." They walked on. The air grew heavier. Every glance said the same thing. She doesn't belong. By the time they reached the livery, Nita's shoulders sagged. She sat on the rail, watching a foal stumble after its mother. Her eyes followed the colt, but her voice was small. "They hate me." The cowboy crouched, elbows on his knees. "They hate what they don't try to know." She shook her head. "They'll never know me." "Not really." His chest tightened. He wanted to tell her different, but lies never sat well in his mouth. Instead, he asked, "What would make you feel it's real, that I'm your father, not just words I spoke in anger?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "A father gives his daughter something no one can take away. A name, or—" She trailed off, shy. "Or a horse." He blinked, then chuckled low. "A horse, huh?" She nodded quick, serious. "Not a gift. A bond. If I had a horse, I could ride behind you. Or away from them. I'd belong somewhere." He studied her, skinny arms, stubborn jaw, eyes too old. He thought of his own father, who'd given him nothing but a spade and a shallow grave. He thought of the horse he'd broken himself at 16, the only thing that had felt like his. Finally he stood, whistled sharp. From the far stall came a small bay mare, nervous but gentle-eyed. He led her out, rope loose in his hand. "She ain't much. Not trained for war. But she's quick, smart. Nita slid off the rail, eyes wide. "She's beautiful." The cowboy placed the rope in her hands. "Then she's yours." Her breath hitched. "Truly, truly." She pressed her cheek to the mare's neck, whispering words in Apache too soft to catch. The horse snorted, ears flicking, then stood calmer. The cowboy watched, something unsteady loosening in his chest. But across the street, voices rose again. Men gathered, pointing. One spat into the dust. "Look at that, now he's giving her stock, next he'll hand her the ranch." Nita heard. Her hand clenched the rope tighter. She turned to the cowboy, eyes blazing with fear and defiance. "Don't let them take her, don't let them take me." He laid a hand on her shoulder, steady, unshaken. "They won't." His voice was iron. "Not while I draw breath." The crowd's mutters thickened. Doors banged shut, as if the whole town had just decided. The sheriff's voice carried faint down the street, warning low but true. "You've set your path now, cowboy, and they'll test if your word is worth the lead it'll cost." Nita's small fingers laced through the rope, through his. "Then stand. Please, just stand." And for the first time in years, he realized he wanted to be the wall she believed he was. The test came faster than either of them expected. By noon, the sun hammered the town square. Nita brushed the mare's coat outside the livery, small hands moving careful, lips whispering a soft tune in Apache. For the first time since she'd asked that question, her shoulders weren't curled in fear. The cowboy leaned on the hitch rail, hat low, eyes scanning the street. Too quiet. Folks were watching through shutters instead of walking past. He'd felt that silence before, just before a fight. Bootsteps echoed. 3 ranchers strode into the square, led by Jed Cutter, a man who'd lost too many cattle and found bitterness instead. He tipped his hat mockingly. "Afternoon, stranger. Here tell you've gone and adopted yourself a savage." Nita froze, her hand on the mare's neck. The animal sensed her fear, ears flicking. The cowboy didn't move. "Here tell you've got nothing better to do than spit poison." Jed's smile thinned. "Poison. I call it truth. That girl's blood brought raids to this land long before you showed. You give her a horse. Next thing she'll lead her people to burn ours." "She's a child," the cowboy said flat. Jed stepped closer, boots crunching in dust. "She's a curse, and we'll not have her stock tied in town like she belongs here. That mare's ours now." He reached for the rope. Nita jerked back, clutching it tight. "No." The cowboy moved then, fast but measured. He stepped between Jed and the girl, hand resting on his revolver. "Touch that rope and you're touching me." The square held its breath. From windows, faces pressed closer. The tension hummed like a wire. Jed sneered. "You'd draw steel for her." The cowboy's eyes didn't blink. "I already did when I said the word father. You think I was bluffing." Jed's men shifted, hands near their belts. Nita clung to the mare, whispering, "Please, don't let go." The sheriff's voice rang from the far porch. "Enough! Put it down, Jed! You start this! You answer for every drop spilled!" Jed spat, glaring. "So you side with him? With her?" Mallory's face was carved from stone. "I side with law, and law says theft's theft, whether it's cattle or a child's rope." The crowd murmured. Jed's jaw clenched. For a moment it seemed he might push anyway, but then his eyes flicked to the revolver half shown at the cowboy's hip. He stepped back, voice dripping. "This ain't over. One day you'll ride out, and when you do, no badge will stand between her and what's coming." He turned, stomping off, his men at his heels. The street exhaled. Nita sagged against the mare, tears burning, but unshed. "They'll take her," she whispered. "They'll take me." The cowboy knelt, tilting her chin until her eyes met his. "Not while I'm here." His voice was quiet, but iron. Her lip trembled. "But you can't stay forever." He hesitated, then set his hat on her small head. "Maybe not forever, but today, and tomorrow. If I can buy it, sometimes that's all a father gets." She clutched the brim with both hands, the hat too big but steadying her. For the first time, a fragile smile broke through her fear. But from the saloon, voices picked up again, angry, mean, fueled by whiskey. The rumor was spreading wider, sharper. The cowboy who gave an Apache girl his name. and by sundown, Nita knew the whole town would decide whether that name meant anything at all. By sundown, the street had turned into a tinderbox. Lanterns glowed in windows, voices leaked from behind shutters, whispers sharper than gunmetal. Every man in town seemed to have an opinion, and none kept it quiet. The cowboy tied his horse at the end of the boardwalk, Nita's little mare beside it. She brushed the animal's mane, trying to ignore the stares through glass. But even at 10 years old, she knew the weight of a town's hatred. When a door creaked, she flinched. Only the sheriff stepping out, hat pulled low. He eyed her, then the cowboy. "They're stirring ugly," Mallory said. "If you mean to keep her, you better do it where all can hear." "Not just in whispers," the cowboy's jaw worked. "And if I don't, then they'll call her thief, savage, curse, anything that lets them sleep after they take her from you." Nita's hand stilled on the mare. She looked up at the man who'd called himself her father. "He's right." The cowboy knelt, dust creasing his coat. "What are you asking, Nita?" Her eyes glistened, but didn't break. "I don't want to just be your daughter in the shadows. Say it in front of them. Say it where they can't take it back." His chest tightened. He'd never asked for roots, never wanted chains, but this child had wrapped herself around his word until it felt heavier than iron. "Do you understand what you're asking?" he said low. "It means they'll turn on me same as they turn on you." She nodded, small but fierce, better together than alone. He stood, looked down the street. Men lingered outside the saloon, rough and restless. "Perfect place for a reckoning," Mallory muttered. "You're fixing to light the match." "Maybe it's time," the cowboy said. He took Nita's hand and walked her straight into the saloon. The piano stopped mid-note, heads turned, whiskey glasses froze. Jed Cutter leaned on the bar, smirk curling as he saw them. "Well, well," Jed drawled. "Brought your pet inside now?" The cowboy's voice carried like a gunshot. "Not pet. Daughter." A silence fell so sharp even the flies seemed to freeze. Jed laughed once, ugly. "Daughter, you lost your mind. She's Apache blood. She ain't yours." The cowboy set his hand on Nita's shoulder. "Steady. Blood don't make a father. Word does. And I gave mine." Nita's chest rose and fell fast, but her chin stayed high. Jed slammed his glass down. "You think we'll stomach this? You think a town built on sweat will let a savage child sit under its roof?" The cowboy's eyes locked on him, calm and cold. "You don't get to decide. I already did." The room bristled, hands twitching near holsters, boots scraping. Mallory lingered in the doorway, rifle angled but not raised, sweat on his brow. Nita whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. "You stood." And for the first time, he realized she wasn't asking anymore. She was reminding. Jed's chair screeched back. "Then let's see if a word's worth dying for." The cowboy didn't flinch. His hand hovered inches above his revolver. The whole saloon leaned into the silence. Then outside, a shout rose. "Riders coming! Not townsfolk, strangers!" Men rushed to the windows. Hooves thundered down the dark street. Torches flared. A dozen hard-eyed riders rolled in, guns at their hips. Jed cursed. "Who the hell—" Nita's grip tightened on the cowboy's sleeve. "It's them. The ones who burned my camp, the ones I ran from." Her voice cracked, but her next words were steady. "Father, they came for me." The saloon froze, the town holding its breath. The cowboy's hand fell heavy on his holster. His eyes met hers once and then shifted to the door. "Then tonight," he said, voice iron, "we show them what family means." The saloon doors flapped once, then stilled. Outside, hooves thudded to a halt. Torchlight licked the windows, throwing jagged shadows across whiskey glass and scared eyes. The cowboy rose. "Stay behind me," he told Nita. She slid to his coat's shadow and nodded. "I'm here," Jed Cutter sneered from the bar. "Looks like your problem just got bigger, Daddy." Sheriff Mallory pushed through the crowd to the door, rifle ready. He looked older than he had that morning. "Nobody fires unless I say." They stepped onto the boardwalk. 12 riders sat their saddles in a loose crescent. Dust haloed the torches. At their center lounged a man with a wolf pelt collar, and a grin burned into his face like a brand. "Evening, lawman," he drawled. "Name's Rawley. We're collecting property that ran—" His eyes cut to Nita. There she is. The cowboy stepped down to the street. She's a child. Rawley smiled wider. She's collateral. Camp we burned owed us for whiskey, cards, and hurt pride. Girl here pays the note. Mallory lifted his rifle a hair. There's no note like that in my town. Your town? Rawley laughed. His men echoed it, thin and mean. Sheriff, you ain't big enough to own dust. He nodded at Nita. Send her out. We're gone before midnight. Jed's voice slithered from the doorway. Might be easiest, Mallory. The sheriff didn't turn. You shut your mouth. Rawley's gaze slid to the cowboy. You the hero thinks he's daddy. Father, the cowboy said. Calm. Final. Rawley's grin cooled. Then bleed for it. He raised 2 fingers. 2 riders kicked forward, ropes loose in their hands. Stop there, Mallory barked. 1 more step, and you hear thunder. The riders kept coming, slow, testing. Nita's hand found the cowboy's coat. Don't let go, she whispered. I won't, he said. He moved first, half a step, then another, until he stood in the wagon ruts 10 paces from Rawley's line. The street watched a man decide who he was. Turn around, he told the 2 with ropes. They didn't. 1 spat. She's ours. The cowboy's revolver came up, clean and steady. Wrong. Silence stretched thin. A single moth battered the torch flame. Rawley sighed like a bored cat. Boys. 6 rifles slid free. Metal winked. Mallory swore under his breath. Back inside, he hissed at the room behind him. No one moved. The cowboy's voice didn't rise. You take her, you take me. Rawley cocked his head. Why, she ain't your blood. She's my word, the cowboy said. Something like disappointment flickered across Rawley's face, as if the answer made the sport duller. Then he shrugged. Kill the word. Spurs jingled. Rifles lifted higher. Nita stepped out from the boardwalk shadow and placed her small hand on the cowboy's back. Her voice came clear, too big for her frame. He's my father. Jed barked a laugh. Hear that? The rat believes it. Mrs. Hale's voice cut, shaky but hard. She ain't no rat. Her husband glanced at her, startled. She didn't look away from Rawley. She's a child. 2 more faces appeared in windows. A smith, a clerk, 1 by 1. Shutters edged open. It wasn't courage yet. It was the memory of wolves at their own doors. Rawley didn't care. He lifted his chin. 3 counts, he said. Then we take. Mallory braced. You fire on a child, you fire on this badge. Rawley's grin came back. All the same to me. He raised a finger. 1. The cowboy drew a breath. Nita, he said softly, when I move, keep my belt. Don't let go. She nodded, fingers hooking leather. I won't. Rawley's second finger rose. 2. The piano in the saloon tried 1 lonely note and quit. The town smelled of sweat and dust and a kind of iron that had nothing to do with guns. The cowboy's voice dropped to a whisper only she heard. You asked me to be your father for a day. He stilled. This is the day. 3, Rawley said. A rifle cracked, loud, wrong, from the far side of the street. The rope man's hat jumped and flew. He jerked, startled, but didn't fall. Every head snapped toward the shooter. It wasn't Mallory. It wasn't the cowboy. It was the blacksmith, hands shaking over a long, old Springfield. He swallowed. No man steals a child here. Another click. A second weapon slid onto a sill. Mrs. Hale's husband with a dusty revolver. Then a third. An old trapper. Then 2 more hands raised empty palms but stepped into the street to stand beside the cowboy. Jed Cutter swore. You all gone soft? No one answered him. The sheriff's eyes flared, like the town had remembered its own face. He pivoted his rifle toward Rawley's chest. You heard them. Rawley's mirth died. You'd die for her. For that drifter's mouth. Maybe, Mallory said. Maybe we die anyway, but not kneeling. Rawley's eyes slid back to the cowboy. Last chance. The cowboy didn't blink. Mine, too. He holstered his revolver in 1 smooth motion. Rawley laughed, certain he'd won, until the cowboy's left hand came up with something smaller. The livery's brass bell hammer, short and heavy. He tossed it underhand, fast, at the nearer horse's nose. The animal reared, screaming. A second horse shied, bumping a third. Rawley's crescent flexed, then broke. "Now," the cowboy said. Mallory fired into the dirt between hooves. The blacksmith's second shot clipped a torch. Darkness ate half the line. Misses. Hale's husband fired wide but loud enough to matter. The street erupted. Shouts, hooves, curses. Rawley's men snatched for control. 2 spilled from saddles, 1 from panic, 1 from lead. Nita clung to the cowboy's belt as he moved into the chaos in a low, steady line that made sense only because she believed it would. He knocked a rifle aside with his forearm, jammed his shoulder into a boot, sent a rider crashing. He didn't shoot to kill. He shot bits, reins, pommels, lanterns. He made the night his ally. Rawley steadied his horse and leveled his revolver at the belt. He could just see gleaming where a child's hand gripped leather. His smile crawled back. "Got you." A hand clamped Rawley's wrist from the blind side. Jed Cutter's. "Don't," Jed grated. His face was pale, war in his eyes. "You kill him, you kill me, and my men, and this whole street." Rawley jerked free and snarled. "Out of my way." Jed didn't move. His jaw worked. "She asked him to be father for a day," he said, as if testing the taste of the words. "Let's see if the day ends with him standing." Rawley bared his teeth. "It'll end with her in my rope." His horse shied again, half blinded by falling torch sparks. The shot he meant to take went wild, smashed the saloon's mirror to silver dust. The room behind him screamed. "Rawley!" one of his men yelled. "We're losing horses." "Cut the brats!" another roared, raising a rope and spurring straight at Nita. She froze. The loop flew, and the cowboy, mid-step, saw a circle of hemp closing on the only thing that mattered. He could shoot the rope. He could shoot the hand. He had one breath to pick. He chose something no one expected. He dropped his gun and stepped into the loop. The noose caught his chest and cinched. He yanked hard, hauling the rider out of the saddle by his own rope. Man and horse crashed. Nita's fingers never left his belt. The town gasped as dust boiled, and the cowboy came up again, choking, rope burning his coat, eyes bright. Rawley snarled and kicked his mount toward them, gun coming down steady. Mallory lifted his rifle, too slow. The blacksmith reloaded, too late. Nita let go of the belt. She did something else instead. She grabbed the fallen rope, wrapped it twice around the hitch rail, and pulled with all the weight a 10-year-old carries when the world has told her she's nothing. The rope went tight as iron. Rawley's horse hit the line and reared vertical, screaming, throwing him backward. His gun flew, spinning end over end into the dark. He hit the street hard. Torches shook. Men shouted. Dust swallowed sight. And in the sudden hush between one heartbeat and the next, everyone realized the smallest hands in the street had just turned the fight. Rawley rolled, coughing, and found a knife. He came up low, eyes only for the child with rope burns on her palms. She didn't see him. The cowboy did. He moved too late to stop the blade from flashing once in torchlight. The knife flashed down, silver in the firelight. Nita turned at the last breath, eyes wide. She didn't even scream, just froze. Rope burns glowing raw on her palms. The cowboy was already moving, but distance stretched like a curse. He lunged, boots tearing dust, one hand outstretched. Not enough. Then another figure struck from the side. Sheriff Mallory, rifle barrel smashing against Rawley's wrist. The blade skittered away, ringing against stone. Rawley roared, swinging wild. Mallory took the punch full in the jaw, staggered, spit blood, and came back up with the butt of his rifle to the outlaw's ribs. The cowboy crashed into them a moment later, fists iron, rage silent. He didn't fire, no gun, no need. He drove Rawley back with blows that sounded like doors slamming shut. Rawley dropped to his knees, gasping, face a ruin. His men, seeing their leader down and half their horses scattered, hesitated. Some fled into the night. A few tried to hold line, but saw the townsfolk on porches with rifles steady now. Not hiding, not silent. Jed Cutter, of all men, stepped into the street, pistol drawn, but not aimed. His voice cut raw. "It's done. Leave." Rawley wheezed laughter, blood on his teeth. "Done? You think she's yours now? She'll never be anything but a mark? The fort will come? The governor's men?" Papers stronger than blood, stronger than bullets. The cowboy crouched, grabbing his collar. His voice was low, steady, meant for Rawley but loud enough for the crowd. Paper burns, blood fights, word lasts. He let him go. Rawley crumpled, coughing, clutching his ribs. His men hauled him up, retreating under the eyes of a town that had remembered itself in one night. Torches bobbed, then dimmed, swallowed by dust. Silence fell. Nita stood in the center of the street, rope still wrapped around her raw palms, hat too big sliding down her brow. Her chest rose and fell fast, but her eyes burned steady. The cowboy walked to her, knelt, and took her hands. He looked at the burns, at the small body that had stood against men twice her size. "You pulled the rope," he said. Her lip trembled. "I thought I'd lose you." He pressed her hands together between his. "Not while you hold." Mallory staggered over, face swollen, one eye already dark. He leaned on his rifle like a crutch. "Town'll talk for years about this night. Some won't like it, but no one will call her nothing again." Jed Cutter wiped his mouth, spit dust, and muttered, "Guess you really are her father. For more than a day." Nita's breath caught. She looked up at the cowboy, eyes shining with a plea she couldn't shape. He nodded, voice low but firm. "Not just for today." The crowd stirred. No cheers, no applause, just a kind of quiet shift, like earth settling after quake. Women stepped forward with cloth for her hands. Men picked up dropped torches and planted them upright in the dust. The cowboy rose, lifting Nita into his arms. She sagged against him, finally letting herself be small, safe, and as he carried her past the shuttered windows and the broken mirror of the saloon, the town did not look away. They had seen what it meant when a word became law, not on paper, not in court, but spoken by a man who stood and a child who believed. For the first time, Nita's whisper was not a question. "Father," and the cowboy's answer, though barely a breath, was a vow the whole street heard. "Daughter." Morning came with the town quieter than it had ever been. Dust still hung over the main street, where hoofprints crisscrossed like scars. The saloon's windows were shattered, the mirror inside lying in silver shards. The smell of smoke and blood lingered faint, but the echo of last night weighed heavier than any stench. The cowboy stepped out of the livery, Nita at his side. Her small mare followed, reins in her burned hands. She winced, but held them anyway. Every step looked painful, yet she refused to let him take the rope. People watched from porches. No whispers this time. Just silence, testing, measuring. Mrs. Hale stood outside the general store, apron still dusted with flour. She didn't sneer. She nodded once. Small, almost reluctant. "Child'll need salve for those hands. I'll fetch some." Nita blinked. She whispered, "Thank you." Her voice shy but steady. Across the street, the blacksmith hammered once, loud and purposeful, before lifting his eyes. "Stable's got room for that mare," he said. "She's hers now." Nita's fingers tightened on the rope, tears springing. She didn't hide them this time. The cowboy tipped his hat. "Appreciate it." Jed Cutter lurked near the saloon, eyes dark from whiskey and shame. When their gazes met, he didn't spit. He muttered, "You stood. Guess that's more than I did." Then he turned away, shoulders heavy, words trailing in the dust. Sheriff Mallory, jaw still swollen, stepped into the street. His badge caught the morning light. "Town's no safer than it was yesterday," he said. "But it knows something it didn't, what a father looks like when he keeps his word." The cowboy glanced down at Nita, her chin lifted, her shoulders square, even with bandaged palms. Mallory went on, voice carrying, "Some'll never accept her. Some'll never accept you for it, but they'll think twice before trying to take her again, not after what they saw." Nita looked up at the cowboy. "So it's not just for a day." His throat tightened. He rested a hand on her shoulder, steady as the sky. "Not anymore." She leaned into him, a smile breaking through the ash on her face. "Then I belong." The townsfolk shifted, uneasy, but listening. The cowboy raised his head, voice flat but strong. "You don't have to like her, but she's mine. That means anyone lays hand on her answers to me." No one challenged. Nita tugged his sleeve. "Can we ride? Just us. Like families do." He hesitated. He wasn't a man built for belonging, but looking at her, rope burns raw and hope fierce, he felt something he hadn't in years, weight worth carrying. He swung into the saddle, then pulled her up in front of him. The mare snorted, eager to follow. As they rode out of town, doors creaked open wider. Not smiles, not cheers, but nods, a silent truce. On the ridge outside town, Nita leaned back against his chest. "Father," she whispered, no tremor in the word now. He looked at the horizon, endless and harsh, then at the child who had asked him for only one day and given him a life he hadn't expected. His voice was low, steady. "Daughter." The sun climbed. The town shrank behind them, and the vow they carried was heavier than blood, stronger than paper, louder than any bugle. It would have to be. The dust had barely settled when the sheriff dragged Rawley's men off into the night. Horses gone, torches stamped, the town square looked like a battlefield scrubbed too clean. Only the rope burns on Nita's palms proved what had really happened. Morning spread slow, washing the street in gold. The cowboy walked Nita past shuttered windows. No whispers this time, only eyes peering, heavy with judgment. She held his belt with both hands, refusing to lag behind. Each step made her burns ache, but she bit her lip and kept walking. "Does it hurt bad?" he asked low. She shook her head quick, though he saw the wince. "Hurts less when I don't let go." He glanced down at her, a rare flicker of something almost like pride. At the blacksmith's, hammers stopped. The man who had fired the first shot last night wiped sweat from his brow. "She pulled that rope tight as any man," he said for all to hear. "Town owes her for it." Nita's cheeks warmed, but she only bowed her head, whispering, "Thank you." From the mercantile porch, Mrs. Hale's voice cut sharp. "Owe her, or curse us all. Soldiers don't forget a child like that." The cowboy stopped, hat shadowing his eyes. "Neither do fathers," he said. Then he moved on, ending the argument with silence. By midday, Mallory called a gathering. Folks crowded the square, men with arms folded, women clutching shawls. The sheriff's jaw was still bruised, but his voice was clear. "Last night proved something. She ain't nothing. She stood. You all saw it." Murmurs rippled, some agreeing, some scoffing. Jed Cutter muttered from the back, "One night don't wash blood." Mallory ignored him. "But it proves what he said. He gave his word. Question is, do we let his word stand in this town?" All eyes turned to the cowboy. He stepped forward, Nita beside him. She didn't shrink back. "I didn't ask for her," he said, voice low but carrying. "She asked me one day, and I said yes. That makes me father. If you can't stomach that, aim your hate at me, not her." A hush fell. Nita's small voice broke it. "He's all I got." Gasps fluttered. Some faces softened, some hardened. The line was drawn. The elder townsfolk whispered. Keeping her meant soldiers' suspicion, more raids, trouble. Others, remembering torches in the night, muttered. Sending her away meant shame that would never wash. The blacksmith spoke again. "If she's his, then she's ours. You don't break a word like that," Jed snarled. "You'd risk every ranch, every child here for one savage brat?" Nita flinched, but the cowboy's hand pressed her shoulder steady. "Say that again," he warned. Mallory cut in, rifle angled. "Enough. She stays, for now. But if soldiers come, this town must decide quick." Nita looked up at the cowboy. "Will you still be my father when they come?" He met her eyes, no hesitation. "I'll be your father till they put me in the ground." The words carried, whether he meant them to or not. That night, Nita slept in the livery loft, curled in a blanket too big. The cowboy sat below, watching lanterns in windows wink out one by one. He knew whispers would rise again, louder, sharper. He knew Rawley wasn't finished. But when the child stirred in her sleep and whispered "Father" into the dark, he realized he'd already made his choice, long before saying it out loud. By dawn, the air felt heavier, like the town itself was holding its breath. A rider galloped in from the north, coat torn, horse foaming. He didn't stop till he hit the sheriff's porch. "Fort men," he gasped. "Coming down from Larrabee. Say they're looking for a kidnapped Apache girl. Carry papers stamped with the governor's seal." The words rolled through the street like thunder. Doors opened, heads leaned out, whispers sharpened into blades. Mrs. Hale crossed herself. "See? Trouble rides behind her." Jed Cutter sneered from his chair outside the saloon. "Told you all, she's a curse. We hand her over, soldiers leave. Easy as that." The cowboy stood in the square, Nita clutching his coat. Her eyes were wide, but not with surprise. She'd known they'd come. Sheriff Mallory rubbed his jaw. Weary. Papers or no, they'll press hard. And if this town looks like it's hiding her... He let the thought die. "She's not hiding," the cowboy said. His voice was steady, cutting through the rising noise. "She's standing right here." All eyes fixed on Nita. She tried to lift her chin, but her lips trembled. "I don't want to go." Jed spat into the dust. "What you want don't matter, girl. Law don't care about feelings." The blacksmith slammed his hammer on the rail, making horses start. "Law don't always care about truth either. Last night she saved us. You'd forget that in a day." Voices clashed. Some shouted yes, hand her over. Others said no, she's ours now. The square swirled with heat, anger, fear. The elder Mrs. Hale hissed, "What happens when soldiers burn barns looking for her?" "When they take our sons for harboring an outlaw." The cowboy's hand settled on Nita's shoulder. "Then they burn my barn first. They take me before they touch her." Mallory lifted a hand. "Enough. We've till sundown before they reach. We'll decide before then." The crowd broke apart, muttering, glaring, doors slamming like gunshots. Nita turned into the cowboy's coat, whispering, "They'll give me away." He knelt, meeting her eyes. "It's not while I breathe." "But they have papers," she said. He tipped his hat lower. "Paper don't raise children. Paper don't pull ropes. Paper don't call me father." Her tears burned, but she nodded, gripping his hand tight. As the day dragged, the town split in two. On one side, ranchers and shopkeepers muttered that safety meant surrender. On the other, the blacksmith, the trapper, a handful of mothers who had seen their own children clinging the same way Nita clung now. By afternoon, word spread that Jed Cutter had been seen riding out, dust trailing north. Some said he went to meet the soldiers. Others said to fetch them faster. The cowboy saddled his horse, jaw tight. If they take her, it won't be because no one stood. Nita tugged his sleeve. "Will you fight them all?" He paused, then lifted her into the saddle in front of him. "I'll fight the world if it comes to that." The sun dipped lower, shadows long across the street. A horn sounded faint from the ridge, soldiers drawing close. The townsfolk gathered in knots, torn. Some carried rifles, some only fear. Mallory stood in the center, badge dull, voice hoarse. "The fort rides with law, and law rides with steel. Decide now, do we stand with them or with him?" All eyes went to the cowboy and the girl sitting tall in his saddle. Nita's small voice broke the silence. "I asked him to be my father for a day. He said yes. Don't take that away." The words cut sharper than rifles. Men shifted. Women looked down. The blacksmith raised his hammer high, voice rough. "I stand with her." Others muttered. A few stepped forward. But more stayed still, eyes hard, caught between fear and conscience. The horn blew again, louder, closer. Dust rose on the ridge. Blue coats glinted in the sun. The choice would no longer wait. The first blue coats appeared at sundown, their columns sliding down the ridge like a river of iron. Sunlight caught bayonets, brass buckles, the governor's seal painted bold on the lead wagon. Drums thumped once, twice, then fell silent. Boots stamped dust into the street. A lieutenant with polished boots and a face too clean to belong here rode forward, papers tucked neat under his arm. The town gathered tight, torn in half. Some hid in doorways, others clutched rifles. But no one spoke. The bugle's echo still hung in the air like judgment. "Sheriff Mallory," the lieutenant called, reining in. "We come for a child, Apache breed, taken from her people without writ." He raised the paper, seal gleaming red. "By order of the governor, she is to be surrendered." Every gaze slid to Nita, perched on the cowboy's saddle, her fingers locked white on the horn, hat brim shadowing her face. The cowboy eased forward, horse slow, voice steady. "She wasn't taken, she asked." The lieutenant's eyes flicked to him, disdain sharp. Children don't ask. They are claimed, and this one is not yours. She is, the cowboy said flat. By word, the officer smirked, lifting the paper higher. Words don't stand against seal and signature, the blacksmith shouted from the porch. Paper don't bleed either. A murmur of agreement rippled, weak but real. Jed Cutter pushed forward, face sour. Enough! We're not dying for a stray. Hand her over. The cowboy's revolver twitched low at his side, not lifted, just there. Jed froze, lips snapping shut. Nita's small voice trembled, but it carried. I'm not nothing. He's my father. I asked and he said yes. A hush fell. Even the soldiers shifted uneasily, the weight of a child's words heavier than rifles. The lieutenant sneered. Pretty trick, but the law is the law. Sheriff, do your duty. Mallory stood stiff, badge dull in the fading light. His gaze swept the crowd, then the girl, then the paper. His jaw clenched. Sometimes duty ain't worth the ink it's printed on. He lowered his rifle toward the ground, but didn't fire. The lieutenant's face hardened. He raised his hand. Arrest them! Bluecoat stepped forward, boots pounding. The cowboy dismounted in one motion, pulling Nita to his side. He whispered quick, Hold my belt. Don't let go. She nodded, trembling but fierce. He faced the soldiers, revolver sliding free, eyes cold. First man touches her, doesn't walk away. The street locked tight, dust swirling. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then a rifle lifted. One soldier, young, nervous, finger white on the trigger. The cowboy's aim snapped to him. Before he could fire, a shotgun roared. The blast tore splinters from the hitch rail. Everyone froze. At the saloon porch stood the blacksmith, both hands on the barrel, smoke curling. Town ain't handing her over, he growled. Not tonight. Another voice rang, Mrs. Hale's, rough with fear. She's a child, not a curse. If he calls her daughter, then she's ours too. Slowly, Moore stepped forward. A trapper with his old musket, two farm boys with nothing but pitchforks. Even Jed Cutter stayed silent, shame biting deeper than his tongue. The soldiers faltered, eyes darting to their lieutenant. He sneered, but unease cracked his face. Stand aside, he barked. No, Mallory said, voice rough but sure. Not this time. The cowboy's revolver didn't waver. Nita clung to his coat, whispering steady, Father, please don't let go. The standoff thickened, breath held, dust hanging, and on the ridge, more hoofbeats thundered. Rawley's survivors returning, torches flaring. The soldiers turned, startled. The townsfolk gasped. Now two fires threatened the street, law in blue and vengeance in black. The girl's grip on the cowboy's belt tightened until her knuckles bled, and he realized the day wasn't ending in words. It would end in fire. Torches flowered on the ridge, a crooked crown of fire. Rawley's survivors poured down like sparks on dry grass. Whooping mean. The blue line stiffened. The town held its breath and reached for iron. The lieutenant snarled at the newcomers. Stand down! This is army business. Rawley laughed, cantering to the front, face swollen from last night. Business? You're here for the girl. So are we. We'll save you the trouble. He tossed a bottle. It burst in the street, fire-licking dust. The soldiers flinched. The crowd shrank. Mallory barked, Buckets! Smith! The cowboy snapped. Drop the livery doors. Keep sparks off the hay. The blacksmith ran, chain clanking as he hauled the doors down. Mrs. Hale grabbed a washtub, sloshing water into the flame until it hissed and sulked. Rawley's grin widened. He wheeled toward the hitch rail, eyes on Nita. Bring me my collateral. Touch her, and you don't touch daylight again, the cowboy said. His revolver rode steady at his hip. Not up, not shaking. The lieutenant's lip curled. Arrest that man, he snapped, then saw where Rawley's torches drifted, toward canvas slung over the governor's wagon. Hold! Too late. Another bottle burst. Canvas flared, fire climbing fast, snapping at the papers beneath. Stamp it, a soldier yelled. Another hesitated, seal or flame, and the choice cost him his courage. Nita's small voice cut through the chaos. Father, ink burns. The cowboy didn't look back. Get low. Stay on my belt. She hooked her fingers and kept them there. Rawley lifted his hand. Ropes! 2 riders surged, loops whistling. Line! The cowboy barked. The blacksmith, the trapper, 2 farm boys stepped into the dust with him, feet braced, barrels level. Mallory took the flank, jaw set hard. The riders checked at that wall of men. Rawley's eyes cooled. Fine. Then we go through law. He swung his pistol toward the lieutenant. The officer recoiled, stunned. You would... Rawley fired. The bullet grazed brass and hat brim. Not skull, but it was enough to tear the blue line's neatness. Down! Someone screamed. Bayonets rattled. 2 soldiers shot back, wild high. The town exploded. Smoke rolled. Horses screamed. Hold your fire, Mallory bellowed, voice breaking. The cowboy moved like the ground told him how. He stepped into a rider's knee, twisted, and sent man and rope off the saddle. Nita clung, feet sliding, face set. A second rope looped wide and low, straight for her. She ducked, missed by inches, then spat dust and rage. She seized the dropped torch with her burned hands, teeth bared against pain, and flung it into the puddle by the trough. Steam leapt. The rope hissed across wet instead of flame, and came up dead weight. Rawley swore and spurred. Grab the brat! A bluecoat lunged for Nita instead, orders louder than sense. The cowboy's barrel snapped to his chest. Don't! The soldier froze, shame flooding his face. He backed off, eyes flicking to the burning wagon. Sir! The orders? Forget them, the lieutenant rasped, dragging the canvas down with 2 men until his hands smoked. Put it out. His voice had changed. He'd chosen the fire in front of him over the paper under it. Rawley saw it and sneered. So much for law. He kicked his horse at the line of townsfolk. Then mob rules. The blacksmith fired once. The outlaw at Rawley's heel dropped, boot still in the stirrup. The horse dragged him screaming. The trapper's musket boomed, smoke thick. Jed Cutter stood at the saloon door, eyes moving like a man measuring his own worth. Rawley's second charged him. Jed didn't think. He slammed a bottle into the man's face, then a fist, then his boot. The outlaw fell and stayed. Jed stared at his own hands like they'd told him a secret. Nita, Mrs. Hale shouted from the water buckets. Behind me. I'm with him, Nita shouted back, voice fierce, grip welded to leather. Another outlaw slid along the boardwalk, knife low, hunting small shadows. He found one, Nita's. He snatched. She bit his wrist. Hard. He yowled. The cowboy's elbow found his jaw. Bone thumped wood. Back off, the lieutenant screamed at Rawley. Saber out now, it's shine black with soot. You're under arrest, Rawley laughed, ugly and bright. Come take me. He spurred straight at the officer. Steel sang, saber against pistol barrel, sparks, curses. A bluecoat grabbed Rawley's bridle. Rawley's knife flashed. The soldier fell away, clutching red. Smith, the cowboy yelled, eyes never leaving Rawley. Cut that burning wheel loose. The blacksmith swung his hammer like a sermon. The flaming wheel jumped its axle and toppled, the fire rolling into the open where boots and buckets could beat it senseless. Heat shoved the street back a step. Rawley used the breath to veer, then dive through the smoke toward Nita. On me, the cowboy said, already moving. Rawley burst from the haze a horse length away, teeth bared. Got you now, brat. His rope whistled. The cowboy threw his shoulder into Nita, knocking her under his arm as the loop snapped around his forearm instead. It bit deep. He grunted, planted his heel, and yanked. Rawley's horse checked hard, almost falling. Rawley kept the saddle by hate alone. Cut it, Mallory shouted, slapping a knife into the cowboy's free hand. He sawed once, twice. Hemp thinned. Rawley jerked the opposite way, hauling hard, dragging man and child toward iron hooves. Nita didn't scream. She rolled and came up with the dropped bell hammer from last night, eyes blazing. Let go! She slammed it into Rawley's horse's shin. The animal shrieked and danced sideways, tangling another mount. Rawley swore, balance gone for a breath. Now! The cowboy roared. He slashed. The rope parted. He staggered back with Nita, both on their feet, both breathing. Rawley went feral. He snatched a fresh pistol from his belt, sighted on the only thing he hated more than law, love. The barrel found Nita's face. The lieutenant saw it. No! His saber came up, too far, too slow. Mallory lifted his rifle. The blacksmith racked the hammer. Jed raised his pistol. 3 angles, 1 child between. "Don't shoot," the cowboy snapped. He was already moving, already putting his body between steel and small bones. Rawley's finger tightened, and the south end of the street lit up with a new flare, torches blooming from the alley beside the church. A second set of riders slid out of the dark, not Rawleys, not army, ranch hands in dusters with no brand on their hats. "Circle the brat," one shouted. "Take the father if you must." Nita's hand crushed leather. "Father, I've got you," he said. Rawley smiled like a cut. "No, I do." He spurred straight through the gap those new riders made for him, toward Nita, toward the only seam in the line. The cowboy dove to meet him. The lieutenant raised his pistol. Mallory squeezed. The blacksmith fired. Jed swore and pulled, and 4 hammers fell at once. 4 hammers cracked, thunder chasing itself through the street. The night split white with fire. Rawley's horse screamed, crumpling mid-stride. Rawley flew forward, hit hard and rolled. Dust swallowed him. When it cleared, he was crawling, pistol still in hand, face twisted like a man who'd forgotten fear. The outlaw's new allies, the dust-coated ranch hands, stumbled in shock, half fired wild into shadows, half pulled back at the sight of Rawley down. "Hold fire!" Mallory bellowed, voice raw. "You'll hit your own!" The lieutenant's saber flashed, his command sharper. "Advance!" "End this chaos." His blue coat surged, bayonets low. The cowboy didn't wait. He dragged Nita behind a trough, his body between her and every muzzle. Her burned hands clutched his belt as if it was the only earth left. Rawley staggered up, blood pouring down his temple. His pistol rose, toward the trough, toward the child. His lips peeled in a grin that showed all his hate. The cowboy moved, not with his gun, empty now, but bare hands. He launched across the dust, slammed Rawley's wrist into the dirt. The pistol fired once, wild, the ball gouging the hitch rail instead of flesh. They rolled, fists and fury. Rawley bit, cursed, clawed. The cowboy's knuckles split on his jaw, his ribs, his throat. Dust turned red. Still Rawley laughed, gasping. "One day, father," he spat. "One day's all you buy." Nita screamed. "No!" She grabbed the bell hammer she had saved, small fingers wrapping it tight. She ran forward, too fast for anyone to stop. She swung. The hammer caught Rawley's forearm. Bone cracked. His pistol flew. He howled, collapsing sideways. The cowboy surged up, grabbed her, pulled her into his chest. His voice shook with something deeper than rage. "That's enough." Rawley lay writhing, clutching his ruined arm. Around them the fight fractured, soldiers pinning 2 ranch hands, Mallory's rifle driving the rest back, the blacksmith standing tall in the smoke with hammer bloody. Jed Cutter, Jed, of all men, was the one who kicked Rawley's pistol away and ground it under his boot. "Street's seen enough of you," Jed growled, no smirk left. The lieutenant's voice rang over the mess. "By order of the fort, this outlaw is under arrest." He gestured at Rawley, not the child. "And anyone who touches that girl again answers to me." Gasps rippled. A soldier raised a torch, revealing faces, bluecoats, townsfolk, outlaws broken in the dust. No one moved against the cowboy. Not now. Nita trembled in his arms. "They'll take me anyway," she whispered. The cowboy pressed his cheek to her hair, sweat and soot mingling. "Not if I stand." The lieutenant dismounted, boots crunching. He studied the girl. Her hands raw with rope burns, her face streaked with ash and blood, her chin lifted like iron. His voice softened, grudging. This child wasn't kidnapped. She was claimed, by word, Jed spat, and by blood, tonight. Mallory stepped forward, badge dull but voice firm. "Law's settled. She's his. That's how it'll stand in this town." The lieutenant nodded, slow. "Then let it be written later. Tonight, it's lived." He snapped an order. The blue line pulled back, dragging Rawley with them, his curses fading into the dark. Silence smothered the street, broken only by the mayor's nervous whicker. The townsfolk exhaled, shoulders slumping. The blacksmith leaned on his hammer. Mallory wiped blood from his jaw. Mrs. Hale crossed herself twice. The cowboy set Nita on her feet. She swayed, then straightened, chin high. "You didn't let go," she whispered. He looked at her. eyes softer than they'd ever been. "Neither did you." The crowd didn't cheer, but they didn't turn away either. For the first time, they looked at her not as curse or stray, but as daughter. The night was theirs, but dawn would bring its own trial. Soldiers might come again, papers might rise sharper than sabers. Yet as she held his belt with burned hands, and he stood tall beside her, one truth already felt carved into the dust. Father, daughter, and the town, for now, dared not deny it. Morning rode in hard. Hoofbeats, brass. A wagon with shutters over its windows and a flag snapping mean. The blue line returned twice as thick as last night, dust boiling ahead of it. At their head, a captain with storm in his jaw and a civilian at his elbow. Black coat, ink-stained fingers, leather tube hugged tight. Not a soldier, a clerk with teeth. The street emptied into doorways and porches. Guns stayed, leaned but close. The cowboy stood in the open with Nita's hand hooked in his belt. She didn't hide. Sheriff Mallory stepped out second, badge dull, eyes already tired. The blacksmith took the other side, hammer hanging like a promise. The wagon door creaked. Two marshals climbed down, irons clinking, faces carved for saying no. The clerk unrolled paper, red wax seal, fresh. "Territorial order," he announced, voice carrying like a sermon. "Minor of Apache blood found in custody of an unauthorized adult male is to be remanded to the fort and transferred to agency care forthwith. Sheriff, you will comply." Nita's fingers tightened. "Father," she whispered. "I'm here," the cowboy said. Mallory didn't reach for his rifle. He reached for time. "Who signed?" "Governor's man," the clerk said, tapping the wax. "And the judge." The captain's eyes never left the pair in the street. "We do this clean," he said. "No blood." Jed Cutter hovered in a door, guilt and habit at war on his face. Mrs. Hale stood straight, flour on her apron, fear in her throat. The town held its breath. The clerk lifted the paper higher. "Surrender the child." "No," the cowboy said. "It's law," the clerk snapped. "It's ink," the cowboy answered. "My word is bone." The clerk's mouth curled. "Bone breaks." He flicked fingers at the marshals. "Take her." They moved in step, two gray shapes, irons ready. Nita didn't back up. She stepped closer to the cowboy, rope-burned hands white on leather. "Don't let me go," she said. "Not for any seal," he said. Mallory slid between them and the marshals. "Easy. There's town business first." "What business?" the clerk scoffed. "Record," the sheriff said. He held up the cracked ledger he used for births, deaths, debts. "You want to take a child we all watched stand? It goes on paper that she wasn't stolen. It goes on paper that he spoke in the open." The captain cut the clerk a look. "Let him write," the clerk hissed. "Sir, let him write," the captain repeated. Mallory set the ledger on a barrel. "Name," he said to the girl. Her lips trembled once. She lifted her chin. "Nita." "Surname?" Mallory asked, pen pausing. Silence pressed. The street felt the weight of a blank. Nita looked up at the cowboy. His face gave her nothing but steadiness. She swallowed. "Rourke," she said. Her voice didn't shake the second time. "Nita Rourke." The clerk laughed, brittle. "You can't just decide." "She did," the blacksmith said. The hammer ticked the rail. One note. "Guardian?" Mallory asked. Pen waiting. The cowboy didn't blink. "Father." Mallory scratched the word into the book like carving on stone. He slid the pen to the blacksmith. "Witness." The blacksmith signed his big, careful X. Mrs. Hale stepped down and signed. Jed stood there a breath longer, then limped out and scratched his name too, jaw tight. The ledger ate the marks and made them real. The clerk snatched for the page. Mallory closed the book on his fingers. "You'll get your copy," he said, "but the original stays where the people who bled for it can find it." The captain let the moment live, then killed it. He nodded at the marshals. "Now." They came again, slower, irons open like mouths. Nita pulled air into a small chest that had learned to hold too much. "Wait," she said, voice clear enough to lift heads along the porch. "You want me to belong to paper more than to people. But last night I stood in dust, I pulled rope, I bled." She held up her raw palms. Ink didn't do that. He did. I did. The clerk's jaw tightened. Child, the agency. I asked him, she said louder. You weren't there. The captain's gaze flicked just once to the burns on her hands. His face didn't soften. His voice did, by a hair. Choice is not always law, he said. Maybe law forgot something, she answered. The marshals reached. The town shifted. The cowboy's hand hovered near iron that would end everything in smoke. Mallory's breath stuttered. Stop, the lieutenant from last night said, stepping out from the ranks, soot still ground into his sleeve. The captain didn't look at him. He kept his eyes on the child. The lieutenant spoke anyway, to his own shame or salvation. I saw her stand. I saw this town stand for her. If we drag her, we drag our name through mud. The clerk spun on him. Sergeant, you— Lieutenant, he corrected. Anger clipped neat. And you'll not call me coward for refusing to steal a child in daylight. The captain's jaw worked once. He tipped his chin at the marshals. They froze. Compromise, he said, voice flat. Temporary ward. 48 hours. She remains under the sheriff's roof while the agency rides to here. We leave 2 men to observe, the clerk hissed. Sir, the order is clear. So am I, the captain said. You want a child screaming in irons on our wagon? You write that to the governor yourself. Silence swelled. Then Mallory spoke, slow. My roof holds, but I'm short one thing. He looked at the cowboy. If this is more than a day, it needs more than dust. The cowboy understood. He took his hat off, held it against his chest, and turned to the girl so the whole street could see. Nita Rourke, he said, voice rough and clean at once. I said yes when you asked for a day. I say yes for all the ones I can buy after it. She stared at him, tears cutting clean tracks in soot. What do I do? Stand, he said, with me. She moved to the barrel where the ledger waited. Without being told, she pressed her raw palm to the blank page Mallory held open. Blood and dust left a smear. She lifted her hand and set it on the cowboy's chest, right over his shirt buttons, the print small and perfect on faded cotton. A sound rolled the porch. Not a cheer. Something older. A yes. The clerk lunged, fingers grabbing for the ledger. The blacksmith's hammer came down, gentle and immovable, pinning the book there like a nail through history. You'll copy it, he said, but you won't erase it. The marshals hovered, caught between order and street. The captain closed his eyes once, like a man who had swallowed a stone. Then he opened them and spoke to the only person in the dust who had said exactly what she wanted. Girl, he said, if you stay under watch. If you run, men ride. If trouble comes, it lands on this town first. Nita nodded. I don't run. And if the agency says no? The captain asked. She looked up at the cowboy. He didn't speak for her. He never had. I choose again, she said. Out loud, where everyone can hear. The captain turned his horse. The line shifted with him. Fort Larrabee returns in 2 days, he announced. Be ready to answer with more than smoke. Hooves dragged dust. The blue river pulled away, leaving the clerk sitting furious on his words and the town standing on theirs. When the noise faded, people remembered to breathe. Mallory shut the ledger and cradled it like a child. Mrs. Hale dabbed at Nita's palms with salve that stung and healed. Jed Cutter stood in the sun and didn't lie once. The cowboy placed his hat back on the girl's head and tied a strip of clean cloth around it. Neat, careful, like a brand you could remove if you needed to, but never would. 2 days, he said. Nita nodded. 2 days to prove a word is heavier than ink. The town heard her. The ridge heard her. The sky might have too. And somewhere far off, a new dust line began to rise, the agency's riders, the next test sharpening itself on the horizon. 2 days stretched longer than years. The town never truly slept. Rifles leaned by every door, horses saddled at dusk, shutters half open for watching, and always, at the sheriff's office, the girl with rope-scarred hands sat close to the man who had said yes. Nita helped carry water, fed chickens, stitched clumsy patches into torn coats. Some women still watched her like a curse. Others, quiet, ashamed, left food by the door without a word. The blacksmith polished her mare's hooves until they gleamed. Mrs. Hale pressed salve into her palms every evening, muttering, "Can't work with scars too deep." Even Jed Cutter, shame stiff in his back, brought her a blanket when nights cut cold. The cowboy never left her side. At the forge, at the creek, on the ridge at dawn, his shadow always covered hers. When she whispered, "Father," he answered without pause, not just for her, but so the whole street could hear. On the second morning, dust rose again. Not torches this time, riders in neat coats, agency men with faces like ink on stone. Behind them, a carriage, iron-barred, ready for transport. The sheriff stood in the street, ledger under his arm. Mallory's badge looked older than he did. The blacksmith, Mrs. Hale, even Jed stood near. The townsfolk lined porches, silent. The lead agent dismounted, boots too clean for dust. He unrolled another writ, wax seal glaring. "By authority vested—" Mallory cut him off. He held up the ledger. "By authority written here first. Witnessed, signed, lived. You want her? You write over this?" The agent sneered. "A town ledger does not overrule the governor." The cowboy stepped forward. Nita's hand locked in his. His voice came low, steady. "Then look at her hands. That's no governor's seal. That's blood. That's rope. That's work." Nita lifted her palms, scars red in the morning light. "I chose—" He said, "Yes, that's law enough." The town murmured, stronger now. The blacksmith boomed, "She stood with us. She bled with us." Mrs. Hale added, "She is one of ours." Even Jed muttered, "And he's her father." The agent faltered, eyes on the crowd. Soldiers behind him shifted uneasily, no one eager to drag a child past a whole town willing to bleed again. The captain from before nudged his horse forward. His voice was weary but firm. "The fort won't waste more lives on this. Record her here, keep her. But understand, your word just put a mark on this town." Mallory held the ledger higher. "Then let history show we carried the mark together." The agency men muttered, remounted, and turned back toward the ridge. Dust swallowed them. The barred carriage rolled empty. When the sound faded, silence thickened. Then the blacksmith struck his hammer once on the rail. Mrs. Hale's hands clapped once. Soon the whole street echoed with noise. Not cheers, but the sound of people deciding they would not forget. Nita leaned into the cowboy's coat, eyes wet. "You didn't let go." He bent, voice breaking but firm. "Neither did you." She smiled through tears. "So, it's not for a day." He placed his hat on her head, steady as sky. "Not for a day. For as long as breath lasts." The town exhaled. A curse had become a vow. A stray had become a daughter. And in the ledger that mattered most, the dust, the blood, the hearts that had witnessed, her name was carved deeper than any seal. One child asked for a father for a single day, and an entire town was changed forever. Would you have stood with them in the dust? Tell us below, subscribe for more untold frontier stories, and never miss the next tale where a single word can rewrite fate.